Hello and welcome back to the fourth round of Formula Challenge, although it's slightly a little bit different because we have had a couple of technical issues behind the scenes. So this will actually be basically a non-championship round, so we'll be counting towards the point totals, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but it's still going to be the same Formula Pro car and the guys trying to get themselves up to speed with it within the 45-minute race. So it's going to be still plenty of entertaining action around the Brickyard, Indianapolis. We had a very interesting race on Monday with the Formula Pro guys, and now it's time for the basically the second tier drivers to get themselves out. And as we said, the points aren't going to be counting, but at least it'll be a little bit of a warm-up. And Paul, you are here for today's race. Paul Buckley is with me, Cameron Roger, and it's your first time here in Formula Challenge. And what do you think you're going to be seeing today?
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting one, I think, for my first foray into the Formula Challenge series. Of course, I covered the GT Challenge. Now we're going to see what the guys in the Formula cars can do with a bit more of an open wheel setup. And yeah, what a race to get thrown into. Of course, as you say, not a championship round. There's nothing to lose for these guys, so we might see them going a little bit harder at it with less to lose tonight than we normally would, and see even more action on the track.
Yeah, that is a very good point, actually. They know the championship is not on the line. We'll see if all of the guys who were going to race still come in terms of the top championship fighting guys. We'll have to see about that one, but certainly it's an opportunity for some guys to try some different things, maybe on the strategy side of it as well, because the plan is to try and replace this round with an actual championship scoring round at a later date that we'll obviously have to announce once that's all worked out. So therefore we might be coming back for another 45-minute race around Indianapolis. So this is going to be some good data for these guys. So let's see what we're going to be going through today. So they will have a qualifying session that is slightly different to the GT side of things, because they are limited to their laps. So you can either do a single 4-lap run or 2 1-lap runs, which effectively means you have 6 total laps, including your in and out laps. And that really means that the drivers need to get on it quickly and make sure they're not making mistakes, because you only get 2 attempts, and if you mess one of them up, that puts a lot of pressure on that second run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know from watching the Formula Pro on Monday, you saw most of those guys using the single 4-lap run as opposed to it because of the conditions. But by the looks of things, it's pretty dry out there tonight, so the 2 1-lap runs is probably looking a bit more likely. So as you say, needing to dial in extremely quickly to get yourself up to pace with the rest of the field is going to be incredibly interesting to watch. And then of course the Parc Fermé settling in, well, a Parc Fermé style sort of settling in after qualifying, where you can only change your brakes, engine, steering and front wings, or like suspension geometry being locked in place, means you've got to not only dial in quite early, but you've got to get your setup ready as well.
Yeah, the setup's going to be quite an important factor for this car. Just in general, it's still early doors with the car. It's only been out for about 2 months now. Obviously, a lot of these teams and drivers will have been putting in a lot of effort to try and get up to speed with the new car, but it's still a new car, still the first season. And I'm sure some of the guys are still going to be struggling a little bit here and there with that, but there's certainly a lot more room for improvement. And they don't have to make any sort of pit stops during the race. That is open, so that makes it a little bit easier for them compared to the Formula Pro boys, which they have some tyre rules that they have to think about. Here it's very simple. You just put in the amount of fuel that you need, you put in the tyres that you need, and then you go for it. But what are they fighting for? Well, as you said, not championship points today, but in general for the season, this is the only way to get yourself into Formula Pro. So you have to get yourself up and basically get yourself into the top couple of spaces in this championship to get yourself and basically your team into Formula Pro. Because remember, Formula Pro is all about the teams. That's a very important factor, because that's where most of the prize money is and where you can get yourself entered. So you obviously winning this championship will get you a seat, but also you need to have a good teammate, otherwise you're going to struggle, and then next season you're just going to be relegated back down again. So these teams, they're not just fighting, or these drivers I should say, they're not just fighting for themselves, but they're fighting for their team as well.
Yeah, and we've seen that come into to become a bit of a factor in the Formula Pro, from what I've seen from watching along from the sidelines, with some drivers having, especially in the top teams, having the one main driver being extremely strong and the second driver struggling a little bit on some tracks, and leaving the team championship to be quite close. So it does add that extra element to it. It's not just I'm really quick, I'm going to win everything, because you need to have, as you say, that strong teammate with you to move as a unit to try and promote into Formula Pro and then stay there when you get there.
Yeah, we've seen this a couple of good timing with the championship standings coming up, because we've seen a couple of the teams, they've had some good driver or drivers, but they haven't really been quite at the top. So if you look at David Mrocek, he's currently leading the standings by just a singular point to Arne Schumvli, but David Mrocek's teammate Robin Panzar, he's down in 5th place. But also Arne Schumvli, 2nd place, his teammate Ibrahim Khan is all the way down in 9th place. So you can see just how important it is to try and get both of those drivers up there. Unfortunately, Khan has had a couple of issues here and there that weren't particularly his fault this season, but still, that is just showing why it is so important. But just looking how close it is at the top, there's only 4 points separating those top 3 drivers. Roivers did actually get a penalty last time out as well. I believe it was either a 10 or 20 second time penalty that he got in total for the couple of issues that he had in that race. So that dropped him down. But those 4 points are still very close. And as we're getting into the second half of the championship now, it's going to be getting quite tasty between those 3 drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I love me a tight championship fight, and with 4 points halfway through the season, so it basically becomes a 3-race sprint to see who does take that drivers' championship for the end of the season. And you can just see the results going through, and you can sort of see a little bit of a downward trend for particularly Arne Schumvli and Roivers, sort of getting a few less points, whereas Mrocek in the lead got a stronger result last time than at Silverstone. So it's all about that consistency, especially for this point in the season. You see it all the time across whatever formula of racing you're looking at, be it open wheel or GTs. It's not just about finding one track to be quick at. You need that consistency. You need to be constantly getting these good results. And if you are doing that and those around you are struggling or not able to consistently string in good results, you could win a championship without even winning a race. Realistically, if you're consistent enough, obviously you do want to win races, because that's the super stylish way of taking a title, but consistency is key.
Yeah, consistency is what gets you there. And I actually just had a quick basically look over the results, and Noah Roivers, sitting 3rd in the championship, he's actually got the highest average finishing position, but it's just the way with how the points work out and everything. Because Mrocek and Schumvli have a win, the win basically gets you a 5-point gap between 1st and 2nd. But then as you get down from 3rd place downwards, it's just 1 point per position. So if you're 5 points behind someone, you need to gain 5 positions. However, as I said, that gap between 1st and 2nd is already those 5 points. So getting that win here or there from Mrocek and Schumvli has put themselves above Roivers. So Roivers, while he's been consistent, he's been on the podium all 3 races so far, he needs to try and make sure that he is trying to get that win, because it's certainly possible, as you say, to win the championship without that win. But Mrocek's other results are 6th and 6th, and he's still able to be leading the championship. So it's quite an interesting way that works out. But as you say, you just need to make sure you're always finishing towards the top of the field to get the best result at the end. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a very interesting way that system works. Obviously, it's different to some other formula that people may be more accustomed to, and it does add that little element of, you can have a sort of bogey result with the 5-point gap from 1st to 2nd. It gives you that bit of breathing room, but it's still a matter of consistency, and you need to be beating your rivals, of course. So if Mrocek can't pick up these results, if he ends up with another few 6th places, we could see him dropping down in the order, especially if Roivers manages to keep that consistency up. But it's something we'll have to wait and see. And of course, tonight's round, although it does say Indianapolis on the column there, there is going to be no points on offer, as we've touched upon already. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think for the strategy side of things, this could be quite an important one actually, because you can really just have a go, have a test. Something we saw in the first race of the season was Colin Spork. He's P8 in the standings at the moment. He was actually the fastest pre-qualifier to qualify for this championship to begin with. So he's obviously very quick. And in that first race in Spa, he tried the zero-stop strategy. So he did the full 45 minutes on those soft tyres with one tank of fuel. Whereas, as we've seen for the most part throughout the season, most people, they've pitted generally around halfway through the race to go to another set of the soft tyres. And obviously they have effectively 2 sets of brand new tyres and a lot lower fuel, so it's a lot quicker, but then obviously you lose the time in the pit lane. And Spork managed to make it work on that day and actually get himself a really good result. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone maybe tries it here today, because there is no bad side of it, because they're not going to be losing out on the points. So hopefully someone's going to try something a little bit interesting like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's there's nothing to lose, so everything to gain. Could see different strategies, as you say, and people sort of gathering data and trying to extend and get the setup knowledge even more solid for if we do come back to Indianapolis later on in the season to actually complete this round proper. Having that extra data is going to be absolutely vital, and being able to have a full race scenario where you can run maybe a slightly more experimental setup, or as you say, the different strategy could lead to some surprise results later on down the line.
Yeah, I hope someone tries something just a little bit different in that regard. Setup's quite a good one as well, because this track we're using basically the most recent variant of this road course at Indianapolis, because there has been a few different configurations with what F1 used to use. Then MotoGP came and added in a whole different section, and then IndyCar sort of modified it a little bit as well. So that's basically the latest one that we're using. So as you come around actually the corner that's on the screen at the moment, that turn 4 corner, instead of then going into the sort of the double hairpin sequence, you actually do a little flick left-right onto the back straight, and it makes that straight just a little bit longer and also just a lot faster into that braking zone as well. And that basically means that with the added sector 3 as well, the track is basically low speed corners and then a couple of long straights, which means you can really get away with a lower downforce setting. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone's going to try maybe just something a little bit different in that regard, because you can get away with it on this track.
Yeah, absolutely, and not only that with the setup, but it does mean we should expect to see a good number of overtakes around here. Of course, with the long straights and some of the quite hard braking zones down into 1, down to 7, down into 12, for example, they're good positions to try and get a jump. Maybe see some drivers sending it into a few of these corners, as we saw in the pro round on Monday as well. Even in the rain, there was plenty of overtakes there. So with it being dry here tonight, we should see a bit more overtaking on the cards as well. With that rear wing flat DRS system available as well, it'll make things a lot easier, and we should see some good wheel-to-wheel action.
Well, hopefully, indeed, it's those couple of sectors where the corners are a little bit awkward. They actually provide some fairly nice racing opportunities, especially into turn 1 and 2. You can really, it is a little bit tight, but you can definitely go side by side through there, and then following through the next sequence of corners out onto the back straight as well. You can really have some nice battles there before you get in towards sector 2 and 3 as well. So I do think there's going to be some pretty decent action coming your way. And just to update you on that, there is basically the servers just being configured in the background to make sure that everyone is getting on there. So hopefully we're getting some of the top names. I already can see the likes of Arne Schoenvliet is already in there with Robin Panzar as well, for instance. So it's definitely a couple of top guys coming in. But yeah, it's definitely going to be one of those races where someone is going to take the risk, and I think it might work for the reasons we were saying, and hopefully the track assists that with its layout, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course, on back to the subject of strategy, we did get a little bit of an insider scoop of what to expect earlier on, and reports that it's a quite a low fuel burning track, so that could play into this as well. Of course, we were saying some drivers may try the one-stop strategy, and that could play in quite nicely to that, with there being that low fuel burn. Could run a little bit less in the tank, which will then help with the tyres as well going towards the end of the race, and it could mean that zero-stop strategy does work.
Yeah, I think it has the good opportunity to work here. It is something that you sort of have to get a little bit lucky with, because it depends how the other races go for everyone else who's doing that one-stop strategy. Because if they get stuck in traffic or they have issues, then that is obviously just them losing time that they're going to have to be gaining back on you. But I think also here, with the pit lane being so long, because if you ever seen a race around Indianapolis before, the pit lane is basically the whole of the front straightaway, as it's known, and it's just so long compared to your standard Grand Prix track that I think some of these drivers are going to definitely be looking at that long pit lane and trying to work out how they can get around that strategy fact. Because when you pit and you're just committing yourself to lose 30 odd seconds, that's really quite a big factor when it comes into it, because obviously you need to be making sure that you make up that time, and in 45 minutes it's quite hard to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad to say we've now got some cars on track for a bit of a practice by the look of it, and as you say, there's plenty of recognisable names in there, and we'll be very shortly going into qualifying as we hop on board with Arne Schoenvliet in the Sancho liveried car.
He's doing good at the moment in the championship, is Arne Schoenvliet. Unfortunately, his only issue was that he had some issues at their first race back in Spa at the start of the season. Had he not done that, he would certainly be leading the way a bit more in the championship, because he's only 1 point behind Mojek at the top. So if he can try and have a bit more of a clean second half of the season, he's really going to be one of those drivers challenging for the championship. And already he is up there into that second place in this practice session. But Robin Panzar is ahead of him, and Panzar, with his best position of a fourth at the moment in the championship, it's a bit interesting to see him up there. But we'll have to see how these drivers fare when they get to the actual qualifying session in, as you can see, just about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've got a bit of a volume up lap now, which is something I'm very happy of. So crack the volume up, and we'll listen to Alejandro Lopez Iona's screaming V10 around here.
But I have to say, for all the sort of hate this track can get sometimes, I think it's actually a really cool track, and it's quite technical, it's quite challenging, despite being that little bit, I guess, more flat, you could say, compared to some other tracks. It certainly doesn't have much elevation change, has some camber in some corners and on the curbs, but for the most part it's pretty flat. And some, obviously, people may say that, it's a little bit more boring and that sort of stuff, but the layout is super fast, it's super fun. It has these technical sections as well, like this sort of triple chicane sequence there coming up towards 8, 9, 10 is a really cool way to see the track. And maybe one day we'll see it return to some more of the higher levels of racing. Obviously, some GT racing happens here, but maybe we'll see endurance racing or open wheel racing there in real life. We'll have to see. But let's see what Wabakov can do as he comes around onto the start-finish straight. And this is actually one of the drivers who's representing his own team, so working on his own. but hopefully he can be getting into a pretty decent result this afternoon.
Yeah, and it's going to be a good evening for the likes of Barbakov representing themselves. Of course, then without the teammate to help try and boost that points tally to get up towards the top in the team championship, you need as good a finish as you can possibly get. And having this extra round to sort of glean that extra information, maybe get the edge on some of your other opponents who aren't perhaps able or wanting to join in a round that's not going to count towards the championship, that could give him an edge later on through the season as well. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out as practice finishes and we do gear ourselves up for qualifying at the Brickyard.
And this qualifying is going to be it's still going to be fairly important. Obviously, as I said, potentially this track is actually one of the ones where the sort of overtaking strategy side of things is actually a little bit better for the drivers. However, I do think the qualifying position is still important. You still want to be getting yourselves as high as possible, of course, and we'll have to see how the drivers fare when they get out for their qualifying. And by the looks of it, I think we're getting a 10-minute qualifying session for these drivers, and hopefully within that they can set some fast lap times and give us a nice grid for the race.
Yeah, so obviously a little bit shorter than we used to in Formula Challenge, but it does add that extra bit of tension to the qualifying. There's half the time to get yourself tuned and dialed in. It does basically mean that you need to absolutely nail these laps. It could also mean with the shorter time we might see a bit of traffic going on. As a matter of fact, as we see Aidan Millward heading out onto the track, and he was telling us earlier he's pulled a muscle, so any result for him I'm sure is going to be an absolute result, as he probably, I imagine, driving in quite a lot of pain tonight. He was talking of ice packs and stuff earlier on, so good to see him out on the track in spite of that, going pretty quickly if the practice is anything to go by as well.
Yeah, one good thing for Aidan really is that he's obviously part of a good team, being Zacho Simsport, and he's got some really good drivers in that team. I mean, Schoenvliet is obviously well known within rFactor 2 as well, but also Tony Miller has been good, and for instance his teammate Matt Richards was a GT Challenge champion last season. Jan van der Heide was the GT Pro Series champion as well, so some good drivers in that team. And also Ibrahim Khan's doing good in this car as well. So let's see what Millward can do. Obviously, fellow commentator, and turns himself into a racer every other Friday in this series. So let's see what he can do around the track.
Yeah, and it seems to be a common thing with me now, commentating on the other commentators doing the driving, because usually it's me commentating on you there, Cam, in the GT Challenge series, and tonight we're taking a turn to commentate on Mr. Millward in the Formula Challenge.
And he's hitting some nice apexes here, actually. He's gone purple in that first sector, but we'll see how long that one lasts when some other drivers come in. But it's always good to be on the other side of it. But Robin Panzer, actually, he was leading the way in the practice session earlier. And he's obviously he's one of my teammates at Burst Esports, and I can tell you that he does work very hard behind the scenes to get himself prepared for these races. So let's see where he's going to put himself with this first one, doing a 3.9, and he's actually just been just outshone there by Schoenvliet, who's gone a 0.6, and looking to get towards the mid-low threes is definitely a good lap time, but Millward almost a second off the pace.
Yeah, so not quite as quick as what we were told to be expecting earlier on. I think the insider information was that we were expecting sort of the top drivers to be somewhere in the low 103s to 102s. So there might still be a bit of time out there for these guys, but they've got these banker laps in now and starting to settle the order in nicely. And when we come out for our second flying laps, we should potentially see some more tenths being shaved off those lap times as everybody dials in and the track rubbers in a little bit more for these guys to get more grip, especially through the technical sections of the circuit. As we take a look at Pavel Andrzejewski, I apologise if I've butchered that. My name's Great. Come across the line in P6.
Now we come to Barbakov, and he's about a quarter of a second down in each of the first 2 sectors, and that would still actually put him up in to roughly sort of about 5th place at the moment, depending on how he gets on in this final sector. But this is actually one of the more tricky sectors. These 2 90-degree corners to finish the lap are certainly very tricky indeed. Some big curbs and interesting apex angles before the flat-out final corner, opening up DRS and then getting himself to the line. He's actually lost some time in that final sector. He's going to drop himself down to that 9th place before we have Verth coming across the line, getting himself up into 15th place. But he's actually quite a few seconds off, so I'm sure he's going to be trying to improve that. He probably made a bit of a mistake there. I think in that sector 1, he seems to be quite a few seconds down on that one, so hopefully he can get a better second lap in.
Yeah, and they're going to have to be quick with getting themselves ready for these second laps, as we are now coming up on the half distance point in this qualifying, as Schoenfleet's out and improving, and we said there may be time to find, and he's already starting to find it in that Sancho car. Just under half a tenth faster in the first sector. Lost a little bit of time in the second sector, but still going purple, so looks to be an improvement for Schoenfleet as we head into the final sector of the lap. What is he going to be able to put together as we head round through turns 12, 13, and then finally onto turn 14 and towards the line, taking the shortest possible route to shave those seconds off? And it's not actually an improvement, it's a 1:03.7, so losing time in that final sector.
It's good to see actually how consistent he was between those 2 runs, just literally thousandths of a second separating them, just losing a little bit too much in that final sector. But his teammate Tony Meller is looking very good indeed, literally about 20 thousandths of a second off his teammate at the moment. But now this final sector seems to be where some of these drivers are losing their time. Certainly a tricky one. This that penultimate corner is really a weird apex angle that you come into it. Now let's see what he can do. Takes the wider line, actually, not trying to save those thousandths. Is that going to be enough? No, he's going to lose a couple of tenths, and he's going to stay there in that second place. But Lopez Arjona goes up into 4th.
Yeah, so everybody out now on their second laps pretty much. And you take a look at Gennaro Dulius in the bright pink traction car. And it'd be hard to miss that one. When it's driving towards you, and the very bright pink, improving on this lap as well, currently down in P12, looking to be about half a second up on the previous time, so it's just a few corners to go. What sort of time we're going to be looking at here? Half a second wouldn't really move them up too much further up the grid. We'll have to see. P12, and again losing time in the final sector, so I'm wondering if these guys are pushing the tyres a little bit too hard in the first 2 sectors of the lap, and it's sort of catching them off guard a little bit as we head into the final sector with the sort of technical bit at the end, whether they've just not quite got the tyre life left to go through there as fast as they would like to.
Yes, certainly an important factor is the tyre temperatures. You can certainly push them to the limit on the qualifying lap, especially these soft compound tyres. They're obviously good for a lap or 2, as San Filippo goes up into that 5th place, actually. And he hasn't featured so far in the Formula Challenge Series, but having a good result there. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to get his name out there, maybe get himself into a team for a future race. And now back to Aidan Millward. He's been dropped down into 7th place, but no worries. He's on the lap at the moment, getting a bit wiggly under the brakes. So into this it's almost you sort of take it really as corners rather than a chicane, because you really have to keep it really balanced through that sequence of corners. But he's actually gone purple in that middle sector. That's a really good middle sector by Aidan Millward. Now coming into this final sector, we've seen all the drivers lose the time here, and he's getting a nice late apex. Where can he get himself coming around the final corner? Is he going to keep it fairly tight? No, he's going to do the same, actually running out wide. Is that going to lose him any time? Is that going to be enough to put himself up? But no, he's going to stay in that 7th place. And we're going to have to look back at his teammate who's gone purple in that middle sector by well over a tenth of a second. This could be a really good lap by Arne Schoenvliet to cement his pole position as he comes up to the finish of the session. And he is going to keep in that pole position by doing a 0.49. And that's going to be quite a hard one to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. That is quite the lap from Arne Schoenvliet, as we saw, even with the yellow final sector, of course, not even a personal best, let alone fastest of everyone, still able to improve the lap time. That's just how quick he was in the first two sectors, as Lopez Iona splits the two Zanchos at the top and goes P2 in the Volante car, and Tony Mellor has been dropped into P3, not improving on this lap either, so it could stay that way.
It's good to see Lopez up there. He had, I can't remember which race it was. One of the races he started right at the back of the field and managed to get himself up into a really good position. So he is certainly a very fast driver. Now Tony Mellor not improving in the first couple of sectors, but will he be the odd one out to actually improve in that final sector? And he does actually, getting himself up into that second place just ahead of Lopez Iona, which is great for him. Zancho 1-2 at the moment with... actually, Robin Panzer is still out on the track as well, but those two guys in second and third are done. Where can Doilus get himself up to? He's going to go into that 13th position. Now, Andrzejewski getting himself into the final sector. This seems to be the tricky one, but where is he going to be? He's going to stay in that 6th position, or can he improve in that final sector? He can't, and he's going to stay in that 6th place.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, as we've seen from a few of these shots of the drivers finishing their laps, just how many different lines that these guys think is the quickest way around the final corner. We've seen, as we saw with the likes of Millwood going right the way around the outside, we've seen the tighter line, like hugging the wall as much as you can to shorten the distance to the finish, as Gomez getting it a little bit wrong there, and not going to be able to improve from P12 as we take a look at Stoyan Barbakov, just coming around, currently P8, just a few corners to go. Needs to make up a bit of time, and that's not how you do it. There was a big snap of oversteer there, and that's lap over for him as well.
Maybe this is the corner, this penultimate corner. Maybe that's where they're losing all the time, some of these drivers. Aidan Millwood, actually, he's on a couple of personal bests, and he's only just about a quarter of a second off coming out of that Sector 2. What can he do in Sector 3? Can he improve? Is unfortunately going to freeze, but no, he's going to stay in that 7th place. That's still a really good result from him. A couple of guys behind him, Barbakov, Morville, Ballet, I've heard of them, obviously from this series and others as well. There's not slow drivers. So Millwood just showing that the commentators can get up there as well into that 7th place. But that was certainly an enjoyable finishing results to the race. But let's see what the grid is going to be. We've got Schoenvliet, Mellor, Lopez Iona and Robin Panzer to round out the top 4. And then we have Sanfilippo, Andrzejewski, Millwood and Stoyan Barbakov there rounding out the top 8. So quite a few of the top guys, but Sanfilippo is certainly one to look out for there from 5th. Morville, Ballet and Sanfilippo for all of the Goodyear Racing default cars, before we have Doilus in there, 12th place for the Traction default car as well. Then we've got Butler Power Motorsports for Pedro Crulis Gomez in 13th place, followed by Giancarlo Costa, Manuel Correa and Fernando Farias in 16th place. Then we got Verth, Dylan Hember and David O'Reilly rounding out the top 19, and we're actually going to be not doing a warm-up like we have in the main championship counting seasons. We are going to be going towards the start of the race, and we are actually going to get no formation lap either, so it's going to be Arne Schoenvliet to take it away for the 45 minutes, and hopefully these drivers get a nice run down in towards turn number 1. It is a Zancho 1-2 as they get away rather nicely, but Lopez Iona is actually getting right on the back of them. Can he do anything? A bit of a dive, but it's actually going to be Andrzejewski on the outside there. Can he get himself up? But he's actually had some contact from behind. Robin Panzer has been involved in that as well. A couple of the other cars getting involved. That's not been good for them, so Morville has got himself up into the top 5. Andrzejewski on that outside run, actually having a really good run, getting himself up into that top 4, but the top 2 are running away.
Yeah, they absolutely are. It looks like, sadly, Millwood may have been involved in some of that incident we saw briefly at turn 1, as he's all the way down towards the very back of the grid now. But there have been a few drivers making a good jump at the start, as you can see. Schoenvliet and Mellor off into the distance, leaving this battle a little bit further back as we're riding on board with Julius now chasing after Barbakov, and two of those Goodyear Racing default cars just up ahead. That was a big snap of the oversteer there for one of them. In fact, no, that was Barbakov even looking to go up the inside around the final corner. Made that move took a few corners, but he's made it work, and now Barla's dropping more positions, and they're 3 wide going down into turn 1, and Julius jumps all of them. And now Barla's trying to come back at Barbakov. Barbakov just able to keep ahead, and yeah, that's a pretty disastrous few corners for Fabian Barla.
That's just what can happen, unfortunately, if you make a couple of mistakes, especially when the cars are so close together. But Barbakov, it looks like, has actually got a really good run. Remember, we won't have a DRS active at this point in the race, but he can't quite get that slipstream. It looks like Doylis actually up front is having a bit lower wings maybe than Barbakov, because he seems to be losing a little bit, and now he's just getting through this awkward section 8, 9, 10, getting out onto this sort of back straight, but it's really a corner 10, 11. But unfortunately, he's not going to be able to try and get past there. But on the brakes, maybe he can, but not quite good enough. But I think Barbakov is going to be able to make this move stick, because he's actually already a couple of seconds ahead, and he's going to want to fill those gaps.
Absolutely, and of course we've got Andrzejewski down the road ahead of these few drivers as well. Morville just up ahead as well, and Barbakov is definitely going to want to get past Julius as soon as he can to make that move happen. As we take a look at a replay of the start, this is taking a look from Robin Pansar's point of view. What was going on here? We saw a bit of a late dive bomb, a bit of a sandwich for Robin Pansar, and then that's just extremely unfortunate. And this is what happened to Aidan Millward as well. We thought he might have been involved in this, and he was indeed part of that sandwich. And from one bit of contact to another, and into the gravel.
Yeah, that was a bit of a ascend into turn 1 from Aidan there, getting a bit excited. Unfortunately, not much Robin could do about that one, because the contact wasn't very nice for him as well. But we'll come back to Stoyan Barbakov, because he's actually getting very close indeed. He's really up the gearbox, but can he get past? That is really the main question for him, and that's obviously the hardest part as well. Schindler sets a 4.6 out the front, already pulling away by 2 seconds to his teammate Tony Meller. But let's see what Barbakov can do. But no, I think he's really gone for a bit of a higher wing setup. You can just see he's actually losing ground there. And that's something that you really have to take into consideration with your setups. We were mentioning earlier, with such long straights here, you really need some lower wings.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's as we've just got another replay coming up now of Aidan Millward making a move down the main straight, cuts across to the inside, and drag racing down into turn 1, and then it becomes a case of leaving on the brakes. And, it's by the looks of that, it was definitely Mr. Millward. He went a bit deep, but he managed to hold the move. A very nice overtake there as we take a flick back to this battle, with which could go on for quite some time. But Barbakov looking up the inside now. Can he hold it around there for now? But of course, we're getting towards the final sector, and then once we get to the straight, as Barbakov makes the move, can he hold it off against Julius, who we've seen has a bit more straight line speed, and it's just going to be down to who gets the better exit, and it does look like it's going to be Barbakov actually. He's just able to carry so much more speed, and now he can chase off after Morville down the road.
And the DRS rear flap is now activated, as you can see there on Julius's car, and he is hasn't obviously been able to come back at Barbakov, because Barbakov had a really good... Oh, it's Banner there getting really wiggly on the exit of turn number 2, which is just not going to be helping him at all, because that's going to probably put him just outside of... Actually, might have actually just got into the DRS there, because this is within 1 second that you need to be for these drivers to get that DRS, and that's going to be very important for them to make sure they can try and get these overtakes. As we come back to Aidan Millward now, who's on the back of Gomez, and it's trying to get another position. And I wonder actually how much damage or not that Aidan has, but certainly he's going to be trying to make some progress throughout the race.
Absolutely, and he's it's going to be a fun race for Aidan now, trying to come back through the field. We're going to see plenty of overtakes. There's a bit of a tyre smoke there from Costa up front, having a bit of a lock-up as we're now on board with Aidan Millward, trying to make those positions up Got Cruz Gomez just up ahead, nice clear space behind, cutting across the inside, and we've seen him do this once already this race. Can Millwood make another one stick? And can he maybe dive on too? I think that would be a bit ambitious. Just takes the one for now. Setting off now after Costa down the road, and good progress being made on the recovery drive so far, and with 38 minutes to go, and he's going to take another one in fact. And that is quite sudden driving there from Millwood as he's proper storming off down the road now.
He's got himself up into the top 10 already, which is great to see. Let's see what's happened to Fabian here coming out of turn number 2. This was his bit of a wiggle. Oh, you can see his throttle inputs there, just trying to catch the car. It is actually so difficult that turn 2 with this lap has a lot tighter of a turn 1 than it used to be back in the older F1 days 10-15 years ago, and that really tightens you into turn 2. So instead of it being just a nice easy sort of half flat out corner where you just balance the throttle, it's turned into this really awkward little corner, and you can really get it wrong, just as you saw there, but fortunately you managed to keep it on. But this has now turned into a three-way battle with Dylan Hember getting on the back of it, and I wonder if Costa is just a little bit slower than these guys, because Gomez is really starting to attack him now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sandwich with the Butler Powell car being stuck between these two bright yellow cars, looking to try and break his way out of the filling, and that's not what you want to see. Costa getting it all wrong, trying to correct it, and sadly there just wasn't the room for where Cruz Gomez was going there, with the losing control of the car, Costa, and just coming across the track, and hopefully Cruz Gomez not picked up too much damage from that. Also did look like he got quite a hefty clip across the front. Looks like he's okay for now though, so we'll just now set off and try and make that time up.
And Millwood has already got onto the back of P9, so he's making some progress, and let's see what he can do. He's going to have the DRS, but it already looks like he can just keep it flat out, or at least more flat out through that final corner, and he's overtaking before even halfway down the straight, despite Bala also having this DRS as well. But can Aiden do it on the brakes? We saw him earlier being quite ballsy on the brakes, but he's not going to be able to make that work in turn 2. That inside line being very good there, and he's going to have to try and work it again as we get out towards this back straight once again. And I think he's going to be just about close enough to have a look down the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So this move is it's definitely going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of when, and I don't think he got quite the exit he would have wanted through the chicane there. So Fabian Baller's got a bit of breathing room through this midsection of that now, as we take a look at how Aidan Millwood got up to where he is now. And it was just a bit of a mistake from the car in front, and you don't have to ask him twice. Easily take that. This is what happened here, and yep, it was just unfortunate for Gomez there, with the car in front just losing control and cutting across his path. And here is Aidan Millwood then with the DRS open, pulling alongside Fabian Bala once more. He's got a much better run this time. He's already made the move happen before we've even made it down to turn 1.
So I was just going to say, that Sancho setup I think is looking really tasty, because he's just so much faster through that final corner.
Yeah, and I think given the way this race is going so far, we're going to have to name that move to Millwood, as that's the third time I think throughout this race he's managed to absolutely blast past someone down that front straight. And as you say, that Sancho setup absolutely strong as anything down that straight. They're so quick out the final corner. As we take a look at Kevin Morville, or is this on board with Barbakov, sorry, chasing after Kevin Morville. And you can see the blue and yellow car just up ahead. Here we go, looking back, gap very, very tight. Was he within the 1 second window? Barbakov, he was crossing the detection point, so he's going to be able to use that DRS to help close that gap down and reel in Morville up ahead in that blue and yellow Goodyear racing car. So possibly a move on here in the next couple of laps as well.
Yeah, we're starting to see this little sort of group forming, with the top 3 starting to pull away quite a lot. Schumvely already over 5 seconds on his teammate Tony Mellor, but Lopez just holding in there as well. And here you see Costa go wide, and oh yeah, just losing the rear end. Oh, that was the contact, and it was quite not really funny, but sort of ironic seeing it back to those two replays a couple of minutes ago, back to back, in the exact same corner. I think it was actually 2 laps in a row as well, where he made that same mistake. It is a tricky corner. Oh, as he goes for even more issues here, I think he might have actually had a bit of an issue going on there. In some ways, Wirth is going to go for a bit of a spin as well. He's on the green tyres, so he's on the hard compound tyres. That isn't going to be helping him too much indeed, because he is going to be not having too much grip with that, as Barbakov is now in the DRS zone. But yeah, that corner turn 4 is actually really, really difficult, because you sort of pitch it in very early, so you're always trying to do a bit of trail braking, and then you want to get back on the throttle as well, because there's obviously the straight coming up, so it's quite a tricky little corner and just catching a few people out.
Yeah, absolutely, and not only that, these cars are quite tricky to go through there as well. Of course, it's 800 horsepower just under your right foot. It's you've got to be very, very careful with how you're applying that throttle, especially through corners like that, because if you get on that loud pedal just a little bit too early, the car is going to say no, as we see another replay as this Aidan Millward pulling off his signature move once again. And just getting a move done into the braking zone at turn 1. And there's no coming back. And yeah, you can see on the side there the position changes through the race. For all the incidents that Millward was involved in earlier on in the race, he's only lost 1 point as a net loss gain throughout the race. So the recovery has been really incredible to watch so far, and he's setting off after Duelist now. He's not far behind him, and we could see him back to where he started, and then half an hour of Aidan Millward trying to make his way through into the top 5 or even for a podium with the pace he's got at the moment in that time show car.
Yeah, podium's going to be a little bit difficult, but I definitely think that 4th place is certainly on the cards. It's only 9 seconds up the road, and we're still waiting, because we are expecting a pit stop to happen here. These soft compound tyres, since the second race of the season, they've basically been they've had a bit more wear added to them, basically, to make sure that there's still some strategic elements for the Formula Pro series. But as we said, there's no tyre rules here, so they are probably just going to go soft. But it's when you pit. So obviously, the earlier you pit, the longer your pit stop's going to be, because you need more fuel to get to the end, and also the slower you'll be at the end of the race. But let's see what Barbakov can do initially, because he's been building this up for a few laps now. Is he going to have just enough top speed? It has been looking like, actually, I know he can't quite do it. Has been looking like he's maybe got a bit more wing on the car compared to some other people, and it looks like Morville's going to be holding on for now.
Yeah, but the important thing is you can see Morville starting to feel the pressure of Barbakov behind. Had a couple of lockups towards the end of the last lap, and that's gonna bring Barbakov in, and it's also going to make life a little bit more difficult for Morville, because of course once you lock up once, it's very easy to lock up that tyre again, which make that flat spot even bigger. And it's I know from my experience, I'm no racer like these guys, but it gets very, or more than anything, annoying to drive with a flat spot on the wheel, because you're vibrating your whole sim rig around. And it becomes a lot more difficult with those flat spot tyres. Not to mention, of course, you are losing out on grip and making flat spotting those tyres even easier later on, which means you've got to be even more careful through the braking zones.
And Barbakov, can he finally do it? He's so close as they get to the DRS, which opens as soon as the final corner finishes. He's getting closer and closer, but can he just get his nose down the inside? He's thinking about it, but he can't quite do it. So he needs to try and get an even better final corner. And that final corner is so on the limit that it makes it so tricky. But let's see, can he stay close enough here through turn number 4? Getting the acceleration now out into 5 and 6. But I don't think he's going to quite be able to do it, because it's going to be such a difficult position for him with that slow top speed. But now down the inside, this is going to be his best attempt. He's just got his nose in there. And actually, I think Morville had a bit of a lock-up, just helping him give a bit more space to Barbakov. And now Barbakov is through and needs to try and catch the car ahead of him. But now Hember also in the yellow car, overtaking a Goodyear car. Deja vu there, but Hember getting through up inside the top 10 as well.
Yeah, and Fabian Baller's not having a race to remember so far, losing positions throughout this race just gradually, as we see Aidan Millward now managed to catch up to the back of Gennaro Julius in that bright pink traction car, who had a bit of a lock-up by the look of it as we started to ride on board, and may not be close enough this time around to pull off that signature move into turn 1, but surely on the next lap he will be, and then he will be setting off after the battle we've just been watching with Arbatov and Morville as well. As we take a look at a replay, and this is Luis Gomez in the Butler Park car, and is he going to get a little bit too hot on the power and go for a spin? Ooh, job. I thought he was going to catch that for a moment there, and unfortunately not, as we get one of the, what should be now trademarked Ruben Carrera Alves slow-mos of that incident taking place, and just overcorrecting a little bit, and sadly winding up in the wall.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate there, and he's actually gone for a DNF with that as well. But we come back to Aidan Millward to see if he can get back up a position. Well, he's actually just got up because Tony Mellor has DNF'd somewhere as well. So actually Millward's already got back up to his start position, but now Doyless is his threat. And let's see what he can do, because you can see Millward's almost like slipstreaming through the final corner. The car's just so stable and less on the limit, but he's not going to be quite close enough to get down the inside into turn number 1. But that final corner is so weird because it's more than 90 degrees. It's actually quite a long corner, and as I was saying, you're sort of on the limit, and once again Aidan gets a free position from someone going wide in turn number 4. Slightly unexpected there, but that's going to be him up into that 6th place, and that's going to make it a lot easier actually, because that's, as I was explaining, that final corner, you really have to get it right with your line. It's not as easy as it looks on paper, but Millward doesn't need to worry about that as he's up into 6th place, and he's actually only about sort of 5-6 seconds away from getting himself up into that top 4, and maybe now looking at a podium, because as we mentioned about a lap ago, Tony Mellor has DNF somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we'll find out what happened with Tony Mellor coming up soon. Is this going to be it? In fact, as we check a replay, it is indeed. So as we running around now, what went on with Tony Mellor? And that's potentially some kind of wheel issue by the look of it, not turning for the corner and winding up in the wall. So maybe something going on with the setup for Tony Mellor causing that DNF. Just speculation, of course. I have absolutely no idea what happened, but that would be my best guess. It did look like he just sort of stopped turning. Yeah,
there was the replay sort of glitched a little bit. I don't know if that was just the replay or actually what he was seeing, because if it was what he was seeing, then that's the unfortunate place to have issues through turn 11, because you really need to commit to that corner. Obviously it's easily flat out, but if you have an issue, then you're just going to go straight into the wall, as you saw. And yeah, I definitely think there was some sort of hardware software issue there for Tony, unfortunately, and that has meant that Lopez has got up into that 2nd place, and now Schindler has a really comfortable 20-second lead, and really getting some good data, because he can just run his race exactly as he wants for when we come back to Indy in a few weeks' time, because hopefully we'll be rescheduling this race to have some championship points on offer.
Absolutely, and we're watching this battle now. Still Morville and Barbakov. Barbakov heading off down the road, but maybe not dropping Morville as much as he'd like to. But Morville's going to have to watch out in his mirrors, because there is a charging Zancho coming up behind him, and we noticed it's looking a little bit, I don't want to say scruffy for Morville at the moment, but it's looking like he doesn't have the grip that he wants through some of these complexes of corners. We've seen on the last lap, just as we hopped on board, almost drifting through some of the corners, trying to get the power down and trying to get the car turned in. So we could be reaching a point where we might see pit stops from these guys, and there, once that's Aidan Millward even getting a little bit sideways, and you can see Morville down the road. And I'm wondering if strategy might play along with this, as we are going to get another volume up lap to listen to Aidan Millward's screaming V10 around the brickyard.
And certainly a nice run around there from Aidan Millward as he's getting himself closer and closer to Morville. But I think what you said is kind of true. When we see the onboards with Morville, he's really starting to sort of over-rotate the steering and slide around a little bit more. Always look at that with San Filippo getting really close there on the brakes, maybe outbraking himself just a little bit. But Millward's steering, he was very sort of smooth and a bit more calculated, really keeping the car under control, because sometimes all the the aggressive movements, it may look a bit cooler, but it's often a bit slower.
Yeah, absolutely. It is just a case of trying to keep those inputs smooth, and slower is faster, as they say in some respects. As we take a look at this very near miss from San Filippo, so much later on the brakes, and Julius up ahead closed that gap so quickly. Did quite well not to go straight into the back of him, I think, there, as we take a look. And here we go. As we were saying, there may be some pit stops coming up, and this is Aidan Millward diving into the pits. And there is another Barbakov up ahead as well, so this could be interesting for that battle later on in the race. Both of these two pitting at the same time. San Filippo now still chasing down Julius, and not quite as close as he would want to be, but we saw how much later he could be on the brakes. Is he going to close in again? He is, but then is he going to lose that time somewhere else? We're seeing Julius seems to be a bit quicker through the corners and just pulling away again, so it could once again be a matter of the wing angle difference between these two, as between top speed and cornering speed.
As Millward comes out of the pit lane and getting back up to speed with, as you say, Barbakov just up the road, as now Schoenvliet comes in one lap later from his rather comfortable lead. So everyone coming in now is doing a fairly equal length stints, maybe just having an extra lap or two on this stint, and then obviously taking a little bit less than halfway. So we've only got 21 and a half minutes left of this 45-minute race, as we see Lopez come in as well. But if we see, David O'Reilly has got a penalty, so he's obviously been speeding in the pit lane, so he'll have to come back in for a stop-go penalty. But anyone who goes a bit longer, they will be basically taking less fuel, so they actually gain time effectively if they can keep those tyres going and if they took enough fuel at the start of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering, I'm just trying to think who was it we saw earlier on was on the green tyres, maybe trying to do a zero stopper in this race. I can't remember who it was, but we could see some perhaps interesting strategies starting to unfold, as you can see there who has pitted and who hasn't. You've got Morville and San Filippo running second and third that haven't, and then Lopez Iona that has. Fabian Boller sat in between with Andrzejewski, Barbakov, Millward, and those behind all having made at least one pit stop as well. So not many drivers left to make the pit stops. And I'm wondering if anyone will try something. So of course, if you've got, I was about to say, the guys currently sitting in P2 and P3, if they decide not to pit, but they both have, which would just leave one driver, I believe, Fabian Bala, to make a pit stop. And will he be the different strategy this race?
And there's O'Reilly serving his penalty. So I believe it's generally a 10-second stop-go penalty for the speeding side of things. And he will have to obviously try and make that time up. There's a lot of time that you lose, especially at this track. The pit lane is so long, as we previously mentioned. But we go back to Schoenvliet at the front, leading the way rather comfortably from San Filippo, who I believe still needs to make his pit stop as well. And then Lopez Iona will take over that second place slot. But Schoenvliet's having a rather nice day indeed, as he just sets a new best lap time with a 4.5, so just a little bit quicker than that 4.6 we saw earlier at the start of the first stint before the tyres started to degrade. So he's obviously just enjoying himself out the front, trying to get a nice bit of, just a nice bit of practice really. Obviously we'll be moving on to the next track, Zandvoort. So we'll have to see how that works out with coming back to this track later on potentially. But certainly for now, he's feeling rather comfortable at Indy.
Yeah, it's been a pretty commanding drive so far from Arne Schoenvliet. He's been able to control the pace how he likes, and apparently the pace he likes is very, very fast. Still setting best lap times even now with 18 minutes left just after that pit stop. So enjoying himself out there at the moment, just pedal to the metal and running away with it. As we take a look at this battle that's going on, it's just developed into a 3-car battle with Sanfilippo coming out of the pits just behind Dylan Hember, with Julius up ahead. So a 3-car battle now as Schoenvliet goes even faster. And we're about to see Dylan Hember with the DRS make a move. Looks like we are diving up the inside of Julius then. And can he make it stick? Julius going around the outside, gives him the inside for the next corner. Still Hember trying to get the move done, can't quite yet. Going to have to watch his mirrors now because Sanfilippo on those fresh tyres is going to be coming at him. And of course he's battling away. He's going to lose a bit of time and drop into the clutches, but everybody stays as they are for now. Sanfilippo taking a little look now on Dylan Hember up ahead. And this is a very interesting battle unfolding now between these three for the final few places in the top 10.
Yeah, it's a great battle indeed, but just who can really keep their foot down the best through that final corner and not do any sort of lifting. And let's see what can Hember do now, getting that slipstream, getting the DRS, but it looks always he's actually going to go for a huge dive down the inside. Can he stop that? I think he just about can, but I think Julius is going to get around the outside there, and that's just a little bit too deep from Dylan, getting a bit aggressive, but so is Sanfilippo now down the inside turn 4. Dylan's now actually gone back a place rather than losing one side by side into turn 5. They're going to have to back out before the second apex of turn 6, and that slowed him down. So now Hember comes back down the inside. This is a great battle between these three drivers. Can Hember get himself to that apex this time around? Yes, he just about can, but we're going to then have Sanfilippo having to back out of it afterwards. So Hember almost gaining the position, losing it, and then gaining it back all in the space of about 5 corners.
Yeah, brilliant racing, and it's worth saying that throughout this race, Julius has done an incredible job making that car as wide as possible. It does seem to be the cork in the bottle for a few drivers so far this evening. We've seen some great defensive driving and able to pull it off once again with Hember and Sanfilippo hot on his heels, still holding onto that position for now. Of course, all three of them now jockeying for position around as well, with some great wheel-to-wheel racing. And it's really good to see some of that wheel-to-wheel racing and nice respectful racing. Nobody punting each other off the road. And it's making this a great spectacle so far as we take a look a little bit further up. Andrzejewski right on the back of Fabian Bala. Bala, of course, hasn't made a pit stop yet. That's why he's running up in P3. So I imagine that Andrzejewski is going to get past him pretty soon on the fresher tyres, as now Hember taking another look at Julius once again, but that bright pink car is a lot wider than he would like.
Hember's trying very hard indeed, but he's got to be careful because now Sanfilippo is going to be just hindering his attack on Julius, because obviously he wants to get past himself. And now side by side into turn number 1 and 2. Andrzejewski, is he going to be able to get past? Yes, he is, around the outside of turn number 2. Oh, Hember's off at the final corner, and that's going to let Sanfilippo back in, and that's going to actually leave a little bit of a gap. So Julius is actually going to have a little bit of a breather here, but now Hember back into turn number 1. We saw him have an absolute dive there a couple of laps ago, so I don't doubt him to do it again. So yes, he does, down the inside, and that's going to be him back up once again into 9th place. These guys have flip-flopped a few times, and despite being just over a minute off the lead, they're still fighting it out and really trying to do some good battling. But just behind them in the background, you can actually see Schoenvliet coming up to lap these guys. So those blue flags are going to hinder this battle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that might have been a bit of a heart and mouth moment for Hember coming around the final corner, because it did look a little bit like that car was going around, but he did well to save it and then retain the position with that dive bomb into turn 1. As we take a little look at a replay of that. Is this that move happening? This is Sanfilippo up the inside, and that was Hember going wide there. Did well to hold on to that. Did look very, very squirrely. And then surprise, he was back up the inside into turn 1, and now he's sitting back off after Julius once more. They're starting to stretch out a little bit, but I'm sure that gap will close, because as soon as Hember gets onto the back of Julius, it's going to bring Sanfilippo back in. And of course, as you say, Shumvli coming up to lap them as well. How's that going to play into this? Because of course they won't want to get in the race leader's way. But he might potentially, even briefly, upset this battle a little bit as it starts to unfold.
Yeah, these guys are almost in the wrong order in terms of pace-wise, but that's why this battle is being so good at the moment. Shumvli is getting very close to them indeed. Hemba once again closing up, and at some point Sanfilippo is going to have to back out of the way because I believe you will automatically get a blue flag penalty as well, so you've got to be careful not to be staying in those blue flags too long, otherwise that's just going to ruin your race. And now you can see in the picture Shumvli can see them just up the road. But Hemba, is he going to be close enough this time? Can he? We know he's good on the brakes, but can he get it stopped for turn 1? Or he's going to go too deep? He's definitely got the top speed this time, going late on the brakes, but can he make it onto the apex of turn number 1? Yes, he can this time, so he's going to be able to defend. Oh, is we going to have a bit of a spin there for Doylis, and that's actually going to help the blue flags for Shumvli. And Hemba's now got to be careful not to let Sanfilippo through here, but he's just done it. Actually, I think he may be lifting off to try and not let Shumvli through, but Shumvli's actually going to lose a little bit of time there. Not that it matters, as Hemba jumps over the curb. And he's lost out massively in that battle because Doylis is now going to come past him as well. And Hemba's didn't really do the best sequence of events there, because he's now dropped to the back of this battle, and also Sanfilippo's quite a way up the road.
Yeah, so it was very interesting how that battle unfolded, and I thought it might be over for a moment as we're taking a look at Millwood, pulling the Millwood into turn 1 maybe, as he try and gets late on the brakes around the outside of turn 1, just the door shut in his face around turn 2 by Barbakov, who's not going to let him take this place as easy as he would like, but he's definitely got more pace at the moment as Millwood. As we flick back to this battle once again, Julius and Hemba still are going at it, and just that little mistake from Hemba bringing Julius back in, who made the mistake a couple of corners before. It seems like a very tit-for-tat battle between these two at the moment. It's you make a mistake, oh, don't worry, I'll make one too, and keep the battle going, which may be a little bit frustrating for them behind the wheel, but it's providing some great fun action for us to watch as we reach the final 11 minutes of this race. And it does look to me like we're going to be seeing this battle for that final 11 minutes all the way to the checkered flag.
Yeah, it's been going on for quite a while, but these guys have now, they've both got past Doylis, and that's going to be very important because I think he was, as you said, it was the cork in the bottle type effect, as we're now seeing Barbakov trying to get past, but Aidan Millwood also on the back of them for this top 4 battle. So Millwood can definitely see himself getting into that top 4. But it's Barbakov that now needs to try and get past Fabian Balla to try and get away almost from Millwood, because we saw the top speed that Millwood had. So now Barbakov, can he get past? He's struggled with overtaking all day, certainly having a bit lower top speed. Now down the inside into turn number 7. Can he make it work? No, not on the brakes either. He's not able to make it work this time round. And Millwood is just going to sit there and watch and try to have a bit of an easy overtake at some point. But here we go. Oh yeah, just a little bit too much curb on the inside there. Manages to save it, and then Hemba goes for a little bit of a jump. Oh, that's going to not do too good for his back when he landed there. But he seems to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's it's one of those things where it's even though you know it's a sim, you still wince a little bit knowing that would hurt the way you land that. But looking at that. At this battle unfolding now, as we're looking back from the back of Fabian Balla, who I believe still hasn't made a pit stop. He's got 9 minutes now. He needs to keep these two behind, who both have made their pit stops, so they're on much fresher tyres. So it's going to be a hell of a job for Fabian Balla. There we can see confirmation. Not made a pit stop yet, Fabian Balla, running in P4. Very impressive drive, trying to make this no stopper work. But it's going to be all the work for him now to keep these two behind, who are much faster. As you've seen, Millwood's been on an absolute charge on that recovery drive all race, and Barbakov's not been no slouch either. So Balla's going to have to really defend for his life in these final 8 minutes. As you can see, the gap so close, and we're getting towards the end of the lap once more. Barbakov's going to have that DRS wide open as we get onto the main straight and try and make the move down to turn 1. Which way is Fabian Bala going to go? Which way is Aidan Millward going to go? Are they both going to try it? As we do see, up the inside tries Barbakov, but not able to get the move. Fabian Bala actually doing a really good job at the moment of defending as they fly past lapped traffic just in the background at turn 2 there. And yeah, this is some great defensive driving from Fabian Bala now, but Barbakov once again with the DRS looks to have a much better drive now as we head down in to turn 7, but again not quite able to get the move done yet, Cameron.
Oh, yes, a bit of contact there actually between the two. And I think Fabian, he's actually going around a second a lap slower or something, so he's definitely sort of in that position where he can't really do much apart from just try and put his car in the best places. He can't really defend it any other way. He doesn't have the sort of the traction and the grip compared to the cars around him. And let's see what Barbakov can do out of the final corner. Once again, he really just needs to absolutely send it on the brakes because it seems like he's just struggling with the top speed with it. He actually stayed really close in that final corner, but once again, as soon as he pulls out the slipstream, he needs to be on the brakes. Aidan Millward coming down the inside as well. Is there going to be a bit of contact? No, just manages to come out of that. So Barbakov gets through finally into turn number 1 and keeps it through turn number 2. But so now Millward is all on the back of him. Can he now get it on the DRS out of turn 6? And that's going to be quite a difficult one for him because he actually dropped off a little bit. So I think Fabian's going to be able to hold on here. But now can Barbakov get up the road, or can Millward still try and get these two drivers?
Yeah, and I think I'm wondering if there may be a little bit of strategy playing into it now with Barbakov probably realising that Fabian Bala's on those older tyres. Maybe will he try and just keep Fabian Bala in the DRS window to try and help keep Fabian Bala between himself and Millward. It'll make his life a little bit easier trying to hold on to that 4th position towards the end of the race. Could be a bit of strategy we see coming out, or will Barbakov just try and build up a bigger gap as he possibly can? Of course, those really are his only 2 options as we take a look back. Still in the DRS window, Fabian Bala, but just look at the just pure top speed difference that Aidan Millward's got down into turn 1. And following that move he's made so many times so far tonight, moving himself up to P5, and now setting back up after Barbakov again.
Yes, they are getting very close indeed, and it looks like he's going to be trying to get past in the next couple of laps, so we'll have to work out a way to see in that one. Hemba actually has a big spin there. We've seen a couple of drivers do that actually. They've actually got very close to that outside curb, and if you touch it, it doesn't look too good for you. But I think Millward will be able to chase down Barbakov for that 4th place. But maybe the gap ahead to Andrzejewski is just a little bit too big to get for both of those drivers. But should be nice and comfortable. Look at that, 27 seconds at the front, and certainly enjoying life.
Yeah, absolutely cruising. At the moment is Arne Schoenfleet just managing the pace now and making sure he's got some tyres left at the end of the race as we take a look at this Millward and Barbakov going at it and replaying not going as nicely, but that was a look of it. Aidan Millward getting past Barbakov. The replay didn't show it, had a bit of a moment, but Millward is through and past now, but can he hold on? With Barbakov having the DRS down towards turn 7, not quite able to get past, as we've seen Barbakov struggling a little bit with the top speed at the moment in that Sparta Racing Team bright yellow car, and Millward's top speed, it seems to be his tool of choice this evening around the Indianapolis circuit. He's made it work so many times, and now he just needs to bring that car home for a very impressive P4 after the incidents in turn 1. And perhaps is this going to be the way he got through? Just talking of that top speed, Barbakov dives across to the inside. Millward says, I don't care, I've got much more speed than you, I will have that position. Barbakov trying to come back, but Millward having the inside line just holds the position and drives on into the distance.
Yeah, that was a nice overtake, and I think this is just a good showing of how Zancho have really got used to this car. Hopefully they can try and show it a little bit with some better results in the Pro. Obviously, in Formula Pro, it's actually Rocket, their sister team, that is representing them. But hopefully Zancho can start showing a bit of that a little bit more, because I think they're really starting to work out this car. Obviously, in the Challenge Series, obviously it's still the second tier, so obviously there aren't all of the top drivers in there, but they're still certainly doing really good. And today I think they've really sort of worked it out, so we'll have to see if this is a trend that continues towards the end of the season, if it's going to be Zancho at the top. But we don't really know, because for instance Panzan had a bit of an issue early on, so we didn't quite get to see what he did, how close he would have been. But Ahona losing some 30 seconds, and Lopez Ahona is not the absolute best, but he's still a very fast driver, and 30 seconds in 45 minutes is quite a lot of time.
Yeah, it is. That is a staggering amount of time that Schoenvliet's managing to pull away. I think it's not a case of that. Lopez Ahona's been 30 seconds slower. I think it's just Schoenvliet's been 30 seconds faster. He's absolutely blistering out there tonight in that Zancho car. And just touching on that as well, it's just learning this car, as you say, is going to be super useful. And having essentially those two sister teams being able to share data between them is going to be so useful for the position for both of them in each respective championship as well. Being able to share setups, share data, share findings and how the car behaves in certain situations, certain corners, certain tracks, certain weather conditions is going to be incredibly useful across all of them. So, as you say, we'll see how the season unfolds, how that's going to work out. As we're seeing, that was Dylan Hember closing right the way back up on Julius once again, and this battle is definitely not finished yet.
Oh, certainly, certainly not. Hember's been pretty racy all afternoon. Obviously, not having the top pace to fight for the big positions, but still getting himself into the top 10. Now looking pretty racy with only a couple of laps to go here. We're already at almost just 1 minute to go in this 45-minute race, and as previously mentioned, this is a non-championship race as such, so these points don't count. We will be getting a proper Indy hopefully in a few weeks' time, but let's first of all see what Hember can do as we come onto this back straight into turn number 7. He's going to brake way later. Is he going to be able to stop it on the outside? We can't quite see where actually the pink car is, but he's got past there, and I think that was Manuel Correa just getting out of the way, and Hember's got himself up into that 8th position, so he's looking rather nice indeed. Actually, it might be Sanfilippo, because Sanfilippo has had a DNF, and these guys have all jumped up a position. And that is Hember now actually up into 8th place. So Sanfilippo has an issue somewhere in the previous lap, although I think it was Manuel Correa who we saw, because it was a white car. Is he having a bit of a spin through turn number 6? Yes, he is. Actually, that's quite a big snap, and he is going to be losing his rear wing. Yeah,
I was going to say, when we saw these two go past, was that a white car without a rear wing? And the answer was emphatically yes, thanks to that incident there for Correa, who was already a couple of laps down and now has a wing to go along with it. But as the timer runs out, we do head on to the final lap. We're taking a look at Andrzejewski. I think he slowed off there, thinking that was going to be the end of the race. But no, you've got one more lap yet, because the race leader's not finished yet. In fact, now he has. But I think that caught Andrzejewski a little bit off guard there, backing off across the line, seeing the timer go 0.
Yes, obviously very important as to when the leader crosses the line, not when you cross the line when it turns 0. But yes, it is Arne Schoenvliet winning this non-championship event at Indianapolis for Formula Challenge. And there'll be Lopez Ahona coming around the final corner to take 2nd place, but he lost actually gained a couple of seconds in that last few laps, but still over 20 seconds behind, and he's going to be hoping that he can be a little bit closer when we hopefully come back here at a replacement date for the official race. But Andrzejewski coming around in third place, and he as well had some some nice running during the race. But let's get a replay, see what happened with Arne Schumble. Did he have a bit of an issue, or was it just him having a nice run to the line? I think it was just him having a nice clean run to the line, and he'll be extra happy with that because he did a really good job, as well as his team Zancho. We said all day having a really good pace, really good setup around this track, and hopefully that can continue for. Oh, let's see what happens when we or if we get this race again, but that is hopefully the plan. But here's just confirmation on the screen. 41 lap race, Arne Schumble, followed by Alejandro Lopez, Andrzejewski, Aidan Millward getting up into fourth place with Stoyan Barbakov, Fabian Balla, Kevin Morville, all giving us some really good battles, along with Dylan Hember, Gennaro Julis and David O'Reilly rounding out the top 10 a couple of laps down. So it's certainly a action-packed race, and we saw some really great battles. So hopefully, Paul, we will be able to reschedule this race to get a proper race with all of the top names, because I think we definitely saw some good potential today.
Absolutely, yeah. And these guys tonight have shown that we can put on a really good show around Indianapolis. So I really do hope that we manage to reschedule it for later down the season for another go around the Brickyard, because there's plenty of overtakes to be made, and across the differing setups, as we've seen and we've talked about as well, leading to some interesting different races. Notably as well, of course, Fabian Balla pulling off the zero-stop race tonight as well, getting some important information should we come back here as well on whether that's a worthwhile strategy to go for. So there's plenty learned, plenty of action as well throughout this one, and I'm really hoping we get an Indianapolis later on in the season as a proper championship round.
Yeah, so for those just maybe joining halfway through the race, this was basically a non-championship race because there was a couple of issues before, so the official servers weren't able to open, so the ones effectively that would count towards the standings and all the splits that come with that wasn't able to happen. So this was a separate server that was created, but it wasn't counting towards the total championship. So this was purely for fun, purely for practice, and these guys, I'm sure, would have enjoyed having a bit more of a competitive practice rather than just doing it on their own in private as well. So we do hope that this race can be rescheduled at a later date, so we do get the full 6 rounds, and we'll have to see a date confirmed. Obviously, we won't be able to tell you that exactly because that still needs to be announced, but we still have 2 races left, definitely, and hopefully a third one as well in the Formula Challenge Championship. There's obviously still a fight in the championship to come, and as you can see on the calendar, it's already been moved around a little bit, so we'll go to what we'll call round 5 for Zandvoort in a couple of weeks' time, before what would have been the finish of the season in Monza on the 1st of October, and then at some point, I would assume some point in October, we'll hopefully be getting the rerun of round 4 Indianapolis, so that is certainly something to look out for. And that obviously concludes this round of the Formula Series. We had Pro back on Monday, so do go check out that stream if you didn't already. And then next week, we go to the GT side of rFactor 2 and TraxionGG, starting with Formula Pro on Monday. And then, Paul, you'll be in on Friday for another round of GT Challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting week as well in the GT cars. So make sure not to miss that. I'm looking forward to that once again next Friday. There's going to be some good racing and plenty of racing from rFactor throughout the next sort of couple of months. Just so much to watch. So make sure not to miss it.
Oh yeah, certainly. Indeed, GT Pro on Monday is going to be a fascinating affair coming from Lime Rock. So it's quite a tricky track, and I'm sure it's going to be very entertaining indeed. But that's pretty much going to round it up here for the Formula Challenge Series, powered by TraxionGG, and hopefully we'll get the rerun of Indianapolis as we said, but definitely next time, round 5 Zandvoort, 17th of September. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching.
Cheers, see ya.